Alright guys, I am back again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Deer Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we got version 1 of my Keter Sanctuary Solrairon deck. So version 1, everything through the additional special set, so through a fraction of the booster set 11. And this deck combines Oracle Think Tank-esque top deck manipulation, both scrying and stacking, along with Gold Paladin-esque top deck superior calling, in order to give you multiple attacks per turn, as well as letting you power up your units. So a pretty fun deck to play. So as always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight. So starting first with the Ride deck, we do have our Grade 0 starter, which is Sage of Horoscopy Solrairon. So when he's rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. Same old starter skill. Next for the Grade 1, we have Sage of Elixir Solrairon. So she has two auto abilities. First one says when this unit is rode upon by Sage of Robust Solrairon, you declare either normal unit or trigger unit and reveal the top card of your deck. And if you revealed the card type you declared, you may put it into your hand. And if you did not put a card into your hand, you put the revealed card into the soul or on the top of the deck. So for this ability, I generally always declare a normal unit, and that way if I find a normal unit, I can just put it into my hand, and if I find a trigger unit, then I can just leave it on top of the deck, and I'll be guaranteed to check into a trigger that turn. So I don't really use the put into soul ability of this skill very often. You could use it if you want to help build up that soul early on, but most of the time I would rather either get the +1 to my hand or the guaranteed trigger chance. But depending on the situation, you can do whichever routes you think would be best. So then she also has her second auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Solrairon in its card name, you choose up to one normal unit from your hand and reveal it. And if you revealed a card, you draw a card and put that revealed card on the top of the deck. So this card will always end up getting called from your soul to rearguard circle by Solrairon's ability, and we are running 3 additional copies of her in the main deck as well, since this is actually one of the most important combo pieces in the deck thanks to this ability. It does let you stack a normal unit from your hand onto the top of the deck, which Solrairon has a skill very similar to her first ability, where you have to declare either normal or trigger unit and reveal the top card of your deck, and you have to get it right in order to get its effects off. So stacking that normal unit on top of the deck will guarantee that you get that prediction right, since you'll know what is on the top of your deck from her ability, and it can also set up a card to call off of Solrairon's ability as well. So an absolutely vital skill in order for this deck to function at maximum efficiency. So next for the Grade 2, we of course have Sage of Robust Solrairon. So he also has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is rode upon by a unit with Solrairon in its card name, you choose a Sage of Elixir Solrairon from your soul, and call that card and this card to rearguard circle. So it gets you 2 units out onto your board, letting you superior call both himself and Solrairon out of your soul. So it does eat up your soul quite quickly, which can be a problem sometimes. But it gets you an Solrairon onto your board to immediately trigger her skill, so you can set up that normal unit on the top of your deck. And it also puts him in your front row, so you can use his rearguard ability as well. That says when a normal unit is revealed by the ability of your Vanguard with Solrairon in its card name, this unit gets a new auto ability until end of turn. That says at the end of the battle this unit attacked, you can retire this unit and countercharge 1. So this ability should trigger at the beginning of your battle phase from Solrairon's ability, and it will grant him the new skill, since you should have stacked the normal units on the top of your deck with Solrairon's ability, or one of our other rearguards that we'll go over later. But anyway, he'll gain that new skill for your battle phase, so after you attack with him, you can just retire him to countercharge. So he is the countercharge engine for the deck. Now he is a -1, but that doesn't really matter too much, since if you don't empty out one of your front row rearguard circles, you'll have to superior call over top of someone anyway. So this ability will open up one of those circles for you to call that new unit in, while also letting you regain a resource. So a pretty useful ability overall. You are guaranteed 1 usage of this since you can call him out of your soul, and then we are running an additional 2 copies of him in the main deck as well to potentially reuse this skill multiple times. So overall, another very helpful card in this deck. So then lastly for the Grade 3, we have Great Sage of Heavenly Law, Solrairon. So he also has 2 auto abilities. First one says at the beginning of your battle phase, you can Soul Blast 1 to declare either normal unit or trigger unit and reveal the top card of your deck. And if you revealed the card type you declared, this unit gets a new continuous ability until end of turn that says all of your units get power plus 5,000. So a pretty nice skill letting you power up your entire board just by predicting the correct unit on the top of your deck, either normal or trigger. Which, again, hopefully every turn you'll be able to stack the top card of your deck, so you should always know that there's a normal unit on top of there. If you somehow don't manage to get one of those abilities off and you can't stack your deck, then you will just have to take a random guess and hope for the best. But most of the time you should have a guarantee of being correct on this prediction thanks to one of your other skills. Honestly, the biggest problem with this skill is it's a Soul Blast cost, and this deck can be a little spotty on Soul, since you are calling out 2 cards from your Soul with your Ride Lines abilities. So you can Soul Blast out your starter for the first usage of this skill, but if you miss your Persona Ride, you will have to rely on one of your rearguard skills in order to get something else into your Soul, in order to keep using it every turn. So hopefully you will be able to use this consistently and power up your entire board every turn to drastically increase your offense. And then he also has a second auto ability that says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose a card from among them, call it to rearguard circle or discard it, and put the rest on the top or bottom of the deck. So this is the ability that lets you superior call one of the top 2 cards off the top of your deck, so it will give you your 4th attack every turn, and then the other card from the 2 that you didn't superior call, you can either put on the top or the bottom, so it can also let you potentially stack your deck. So if you happen to find a trigger, you can of course leave it on the top of the deck and you'll be guaranteed to drive check into it. Or if you find some card you don't want, you can send it to the bottom and hope that you find a trigger that way. So again, hopefully you would have already stacked a normal unit on the top of your deck every turn with one of your other skills. So ideally that's going to be a good thing to superior call off of this skill, so you don't have to worry about, lucking into finding a good rearguard to call. You can just stack one from your hand on top of the deck, and then you'll know that that card is there to call to your board. And then the other card can either stay on the top if you want to drive check into it, or be sent to the bottom if you don't. So a very nice ability, increasing your number of attacks every turn, and potentially letting you stack some cards on top of your deck for your drive checks as well. So overall, a very, very fun Vanguard for this deck. So that is the Ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, for the Grade 3s, we do have our 3 additional copies of Great Sage of Heavenly Law, Solrairon, double frame rare, of course, for our Persona Ride purposes. Next, we have 4 copies of Dependable Pierce Dragon. So his first auto ability says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Solrairon in his card name, you choose up to 1 normal unit from your hand and reveal it, and if you revealed a card, you draw a card and put that revealed card on the top of your deck. So this is pretty much the exact same on-call ability that Elgato has, letting you stack a card from your hand on the top of your deck. So this is the other very, very vital combo piece in this deck. You want to always have at least 1 copy of either Elgato or this card to call into every turn, in order to guarantee that you'll have that normal units on top of your deck to set up for both of Solrairon's abilities. So it is extremely important that you manage to get one of these cards into your hand. If you don't have either this or Elgato, your deck pretty much does just completely brick for that turn, since you had to rely on luck of guessing the right card on the top of the deck to get the power up, and of course hoping that you find something good in the top 2 to call. So without this card or Elgato, you're in really, really bad shape. So you definitely want this as a 4 of, just to be able to call it consistently every turn. And he also has a second auto ability when he's on rearguard circle. That says once per turn, when a normal unit is revealed by the ability of your Vanguard with Solrairon in its card name, this unit gets a new auto ability until end of turn. That says when this unit attacks, you may have this unit get power plus 5,000 until end of that battle. And if you do, put this unit into the soul at the end of that battle. So again, another helpful ability after you call him during your main phase and use his first skill. When your battle phase starts and Solrairon's ability triggers, you reveal the normal unit you stacked on top with his first skill in order to grant him his new auto ability that will let you power him up by an extra 5k when you attack with him, so he'll be at least 23k between his own power up and the power up from Solrairon's skill. So then after you attack with him, you can go ahead and put him into your soul, so that does give you that extra soul resource, which like I mentioned can be very important in this deck. And again, it opens up that front row rearguard circle for you to superior call whoever you stacked on the top of your deck. So yeah, overall one of the most important cards in this deck, and an absolute 4 of. So then lastly for the grade 3s, I just have 2 copies of Divine Knight of Deeply Laid Stratagems, Sages. What a name. But anyway, he has this continuous ability when he's on rearguard or guardian circle. That says if your opponent's drive check or damage check revealed a trigger unit this turn, this unit gets power plus 10,000, shield plus 10,000. So if you have him on rearguard circle and your opponent damage checks a trigger, he'll power himself up by 10k, effectively nullifying the defense gain from that trigger for his attack at least. Or if you have him in your hand and your opponent drive checks a trigger, then he becomes a 10k shield in your hand, so he can potentially give you that extra defense to make up for the increase in your opponent's offense. So a very helpful card in both situations. And then he also has his auto ability that says once per turn, when this unit attacks, you look at the top card of your deck, put it on the top of the deck or into your soul, and then you can counterblast one and perform all of the following. So you can choose one of your opponent's power 14,000 or greater Vanguards and increase this unit's power by that unit's power until the end of that battle. And then you can also remove an over trigger from your drop to choose one of your other front row units, and it gets power plus 15,000 until end of turn. So the main point of this ability is the first part of it that lets us just scry the top card of our deck and either leave it on top or put it into your soul. Generally speaking, you do want to attack with this card after you use Solrairon's ability, since otherwise you'll know what's on top of your deck already. So after you have attacked with your Vanguard, you can attack with him and scry the top card of your deck, and if you find like a heal trigger or something, you can of course leave it on the top of your deck in order to damage check into during your opponent's turn. Or if you find something else, you can shove it into your soul, so you can gain that extra soul resource from that to potentially use Solrairon's first ability again next turn. So that alone does make this a pretty helpful skill. Now as for the counterblast portion of the skill, I actually don't use it as much. To take advantage of the first part of it, your opponent usually has to check into a trigger in order to get their Vanguard's power to 14,000 or greater. So if they damage checked a trigger, then you can use that ability to have him gain power equal to your opponent's Vanguard's power. So effectively to guard his attack, they will have to guard for however much he's attacking for. So it can be nice, like especially if your opponent damage checks into an over trigger or something, but it's a bit more situational. And of course the second part of the ability does require you to have an over trigger in your drop zone, which the over trigger removes itself if you check into it. So the only way to get it into your drop zone is if you drew into it and then guarded with it. So that isn't going to happen a ton either, but if it does happen, then it is a way to give an extra 15k to another one of your front row units. So if you have another standing front row unit when you attack with this card, you can potentially power it up as well. So a lot of the times I don't use the counterblast portion of the skill at all. I am just using it for the scry and or the soul charge in order to either fill up my resources or stack some triggers on top of my deck to damage check into. But yeah, he still can be a helpful card for the deck. So that is all the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we do have our 2 additional copies of Stogron for that extra counter charge ability and just the front row emptying ability of his second skill. So next up, we also have 2 copies of Academic of Verification Pyrrhic. So he has his auto ability that says when a normal unit is revealed by the ability of your Vanguard with Solrairon in its card name, until end of turn, this unit gets boost and power plus 5,000. So this card is here primarily to be my Vanguard booster. Actually, I like putting him in my back row center, and then when I reveal the normal unit from Solrairon's first skill, it gives him boost and an extra 5k. So stacked with the 5k from Solrairon's ability, that will make him a 20k booster for that turn. So that can help your center column hit some magic numbers. Now, if you do end up with him in your front row, he can still be a 20k beat stick, 30k on Persona Ride turns. So he can still make a nice offensive front row beat stick unit as well. But yeah, he's primarily there to go into the back row center to help that center column hit some much better numbers. So next up, we got 3 copies of Magic of Alteration Turnar. So her auto ability says at the end of the battle, this unit attacked while boosted. If your damage zone has 3 or more face down cards, you can put this unit into your soul and counter charge 1. So this card just flows nicely with this deck. It can help refill your soul and give you a counter charge, so it gives you 2 resources for the cost of 1 card. And of course that is another way to free up a front row rearguard circle for you to superior call something to. The only real downside to this card is it does require you to have 3 cards already face down in your damage zone. So this deck doesn't actually counterblast that much. It counterblasts once every turn for Solrairon's ability, but the other counterblasts have to all come from your rearguards, and it actually isn't that steep. So getting the 3 face down damage is honestly the hardest thing about this card skill. So if you can't use this ability, it's usually a 4th turn or later sort of situation. But if you can use it, it helps you restore both those resources and empties out your front row. So still can be a nice skill in those situations. So then lastly for the grade 2s, I do have 2 copies of Magic of Auspicious Signs Tartaril. So her auto ability says when this card is revealed during your drive check, you may call this card to an open rearguard circle, and if you do, this unit gets boost until end of turn. So this card is a bit of a spicy tech in this deck. However, I did really want to play this card, partially because I absolutely love her artwork, and partially because this card can give you a 5th attack every turn in this deck. However, in order to do that 5 attack combo, it does require either a little bit of luck or a little bit of setup, since you have to drive check into this card and have an open rearguard circle in your front row to call her into. However, what you can do is if you have your front row full of 2 rearguards that can remove themselves, so either Stogron, Dependable Pierce, or Turnar, and you can use their skills to clear out both your front row rearguard circles, then when you attack with Solrairon, you can superior call whoever from his skill, and then if you happen to drive check into this card, then you can superior call her as well to your other open front row rearguard circle, and that will give you your 5 attacks that turn. Now of course that requires you to just randomly drive check into her, so that is just random chance. However, the other method to go about this is if you have a copy of Tartaril in your hand, along with 2 copies of Eliron / Dependable Pierce, preferably Dependable Pierce, but either one will work. If you have both them in your hand and then at least 1 rearguard that can remove itself from your front row, then what you can do is during your main phase, you normal call either Dependable Pierce or Eliron from your hand, and you use their skill to stack the other copy of either Dependable Pierce or Eliron from your hand onto the top of your deck. So then what you do is you attack with both your rearguard columns and remove at least one of them from your front row. So then when you attack with Solrairon, you use his skill to superior call the Dependable Pierce / Eliron that you stacked on the top of your deck. And if you are only able to empty out one of your front row rearguard circles, then you need to superior call that unit over top of whatever unit's in your front row. And then at that point you use that card's skill to stack the Tartaril from your hand on the top of your deck. and then Tartaril will be guaranteed to be the first card that you drive check into. So once you check into her, you call her to the other open front row rearguard circle that you have now, and that will give you your 5 attacks at the cost of giving up one of your trigger chances that turn. So that is a very cool combo to pull off with this deck. Like I said, it does decrease your chances of giving you a trigger, but giving you an extra attack that turn more than makes up for it. And if you do that on a Persona Ride turn, between the Persona Ride power-up and Solrairon skill, she should be at a 25k base even without a boost. So she should be still hitting for some pretty decent numbers as well. Now, of course, after that turn, she will just be a vanilla unit on your board. So you probably want to intercept her away at that point if your opponent doesn't, wipe her off your board for you. So she should be replaced with something better after you pull off that combo, but it can be very nice in order to get a big push turn. Alternatively, of course, if you have an empty back row rearguard circle and you just happen to drive check into her, you can call her to the back row, and she does give herself boost for that turn. So for one turn at least, she can be a 15k booster. So you do have that option with this card as well. But yeah, overall a pretty cool card for this deck with, again, some absolutely fantastic artwork. So that is all the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we of course have our 3 additional copies of Elgato. Like I already said, one of the most important combo pieces in the deck for her second skill. So you definitely want to max her out. Next up, we have 1 copy of Intriguing Academic Interes. I guess is how you say that. But anyway, his auto ability says, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from deck, this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So between his own power up and the power up from Solrairon, he should be hitting a minimum of 23k, 33k on Persona Ride turns. So he's just a beat stick card. He's a good thing to stack on the top of your deck. If you draw into him, then you can superior call him off of Solrairon skill. So if you want to replace this card with something else, you can. I just decided to run it as a one of. So next we have 4 copies of Dragon Tree Wretch Solda Sakab. So he has 2 auto abilities. His first one I'm not even going through because you never use his first ability. It's just to give you a Dragon Tree marker, which are useless in this deck. We're just using him for his second auto ability when he's on a back row rearguard circle. That says, once per turn, when your rearguard is placed in the front row of the same column as this unit, you can counterblast 1 and draw a card. So this is one of the main draw engines for this deck. It is another counterblast cost, but if you're using him in combination with Turnar, that can actually be a good thing. So anytime you call something in front of him, you can use this ability. It is once per turn, but you're superior calling stuff from the top of your deck with Solrairon skill, so you should be able to use this pretty consistently by just calling to a circle in front of him. Now you do want to be careful with your timing on this skill, and don't draw the card that you stacked on top of your deck with Elgato or Dependable Pierce or whatever. So don't fuck up your stack with this skill. But other than that, it can be a helpful card to increase your card advantage. Which, the funny thing about using this card is that Solrairon actually received a dedicated support card that has a very similar skill to this. And then later he also received a Masks form as well. But obviously neither of those cards are in Dear Days 1. So yeah, we wound up just using this card instead. So the only other grade 1s we have are our Sentinels. So first off we have our 3 copies of Palladium Zeal Dragon. Just your standard perfect card. As well as 1 copy of the Blitzorder Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that's all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which is 7 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal, and 1 over. So starting first with the crit triggers, we have 3 copies of White Fang Witch Disma. So just your vanilla crit. Additionally, we have 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon, crit with a skill. At the end of the battle it boosted, you can put it into your soul to give one of your units plus 2k until end of turn. So it's an option to get a card in your soul if you're desperate for one. So next up for the draws, we have 4 copies of Protection Magic Pro Roby. Draw with a skill. If your opponent's Vanguard's greater or greater, get shield plus 5,000. So your 10k shield draw trigger. Then for the heals, we have 4 copies of Circulating Sorceress. So just the vanilla heal. Of course, you can run any effect heals that you want as well. And then lastly, for the over trigger, I do have 1 copy of Light Dragon Deity of Honors, a Martinoa. So his additional effect says until end of turn, you also perform drive checks for the battles your rear guards attack. So extra drive checks, always a very nice thing. Extra cards in your hand, extra trigger chances. Potentially up to 4 if you have a front row full of grade 3s, which we do have 2 different grade 3 rear guards in this deck. So it can be a helpful option. Now, if you'd rather run one of the nationless over triggers, you can go with one of those. It's not really vital to run this, but I am just sticking with a Martinoa for now. So that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our one fight with it. And I think we'll fight Masaru this time. We haven't fought him in a while. And we will be going first. Alright, so we'll discard Turnar to ride, and then just end our turn. And I'll let that one through. And he gets a heal trigger, which he has nothing to heal. But he will get the power. And I think I'll let that one through too. And then we draw the heal. So I'm gonna drop that heal actually. To ride Stogron. And Aileron's skill will let us declare either normal or trigger unit, so I'm gonna declare normal unit. And we did find a normal unit on top. We found Pyrrhic. So he'll move to our hand. And I am going to just go ahead and attack. And we get a draw trigger. And if that attack hits, he'll get a soul charge, so I think I'm gonna block that one. And I'll let that one through. Oh, and he gets a crit trigger. That's gonna put us to 4 already. And we get a crit that is wasted. But then we get a draw that is not totally wasted. And we draw another draw. Alright, so we'll discard one of these draws. To ride Solrairon. And Stogron's skill will let us superior call both him and Aileron from the soul. So we'll put them over here. And that'll trigger Aileron's ability to let us reveal a normal unit from our hand. So I am going to reveal... we'll reveal one of these dependable pierces. So we draw one and stack him on top. And then we'll call Solda Sakab over here, and we're not going to use his first ability because it won't help us any. So then we'll call Pyric to our back row center. And I'm going to go ahead and call Dependable Pierce in front of Solda Sakab and use his ability, which will let us counterblast and draw the Dependable Pierce that we stacked, but then we can use our other Dependable Pierce's skill to reset him back, or we could put Stogron, which I think I'm actually going to do. So we'll stack Stogron on top and draw. So I think we are good to go. So we will attack. So start of the battle phase. Solrairon's ability lets us Soul Blast. And we can declare normal unit since we know Stogron is on top. So all our units gain 5k, and that also triggers Pyrrhic's ability to gain another 5k and boost. And it also triggers the ability of Stogron and Dependable Pierce to gain their new skills. So let's see, then we will attack with Dependable Pierce first, not boosted. And his skill gives an extra 5k. And then he moves to Soul at the end of that battle. So that frees up one of our front row rear guard circles. So then I will go ahead and attack with Stogron next, actually. He lets that one through. And he gets a crit trigger. So then we'll use his skill to retire him. And countercharge. So then we'll attack with Solrairon, boosted by Pyric. And use Solrairon's skill to counterblast. And the top two we reveal is Stogron and a Perfect Guard. So we're going to call Stogron and put him over there. And let's check my hand. I got one Perfect Guard. I think I'm going to send that one to the bottom. He gets a heal trigger, which he does not get. But that does make him strong enough for our last rear guard not to be able to hit. So we'll attack into Selfish Engraver. Well, he couldn't build much of a board, and he only got 9 cards in his soul, so he's not going to be hitting super hard this turn. So I think I am going to guard that with Aileron, as much as I hate to.
Vanguard にアタックだ。俺の全力をぶつけるぜ。スキル発動。
So then Barrel Magnus' skill won't let him do much but draw. But let's see. I think I'm gonna perfect guard that just to be on the safe side. And we'll have to drop one of these Persona Ride copies. And we'll let that one through. Alright, so now we can Persona Ride. And I think we're all set up to do our big combo, so I'm going to call Dependable Pierce over here and use his ability. And we're going to stack this other copy of Dependable Pierce on the top of the deck. And with that, I believe we are good, so we will go ahead and attack. So, start of the battle phase, Solrairon skill, that's a Soul Blast. And we know Dependable Pierce is on top, so we declare normal unit and reveal him. So we gain 5k to all of our units. And once again, trigger the effects of Pyrrhic, Dependable Pierce, and Stogron to gain their abilities, and 5k for Pyrrhic. So then we will attack with Dependable Pierce first, not boosted. And his skill gives another 5k. And gets a crit trigger. So now Dependable Pierce moves to the Assault. So next we'll attack with Stogron, and we will go ahead and boost him. And we'll use his ability to retire him. And countercharge once more. So then we'll attack with Solrairon, boosted by Pyrrhic, for a whopping 48,000. And Solrairon skill lets us counter blast one more time. And we reveal Dependable Pierce and a Dragon Tree Wretch, so we're going to call Dependable Pierce. And we're going to put him over here. And we'll send that Wretch to the bottom. And that'll trigger Solda Sakab skill to let us counterblast one and draw. And then use Dependable Pierce's skill. And we will stack Tartaril on the top of the deck as he perfect guards. So then our first drive check will be Tartaril, which will trigger her ability to let us Superior Call. So we'll put her over here in front of Aileron. And we'll get a crit trigger. So we will give both those effects to Tartaril. So then we'll attack with Dependable Pierce. And he guards. And then we can attack with Tartar Reel, boosted by Aileron for 48,002 crit. Oh, and he's got to let it through. And we got him with that one. So there you go, that was my Solrairon deck. I do like this deck quite a bit. It can be clunky sometimes with timing of some of its skills, but overall I think it is a really fun deck to play. So anyway, I will be back soon with more deck profiles. Next up, I'll be doing my Gandiva deck. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.